At the 4th South Africa Investment Conference, which is underway in Sandton, President Cyril Ramaphosa promised investors that the setbacks experienced so far will be urgently attended to. Our business reporter, Kopano Gumbi, is among those attending that conference. She joins us live now. Kopano, when we talk about the business community, I was just reading up on the thoughts of the National Planning Commission, whose sentiment is that low business confidence is one of the biggest barriers to investment in South Africa. And I wonder whether your next guest might concur with those that still say that South African business is on strike when it comes to investing in this country.
Tolly, you could not have put it better yourself, and I think, in fact, that is the very first question I will put to Busi Mavuso, who joins me now here on the outskirts of this South Africa Investment Conference, where we just heard President Cyril Ramaphosa explaining what they've done and what they still need to do in order to achieve their target of 1.2 trillion rand. Busi, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We heard the President being honest that we've come so far, but there are still some challenges. From a business perspective, do you think this will improve confidence that South Africa is serious about what it wants to do to grow our economy?
I think it definitely will improve confidence. Good morning, and thank you very much for inviting me. So the President's articulation of what we're facing as a country was very refreshing. You know, an honest count of where we are as a country and what it is that needs to be done to boost the levels of confidence in the country, I think was actually very, convincing. I think it was also very credible, because I think as we try to bring investors into the country, they need to be aware of what challenges we are facing as a country. Let's actually clearly articulate that, and let's actually make sure that we bring them in so that they can be part of helping us build South Africa, and grow South Africa together, as it were. But I must also say that we're having this investment conference under a different atmosphere, where government has done quite a few reforms, critical reforms that have been jumping up and down about as business. I think last year we saw the lifting of the license exemption to 100 megawatts for self-generation, which is absolutely brilliant. We are going to be receiving the announcement of bid window 6, which is going to deal with the 4,000 megawatts, shortage that we have, in our electricity generation at the moment. There have been reforms that have been announced on the ports front, the one which is going to be allowing more private sector participation, and the second one which is going to ensure that TNPA, is set up as an independent company. We saw the auctioning of the spectrum last week, which raked in 14.4 billion rands, which is going to go a long way, especially in this environment where our fiscal is very constrained. We have seen announcement around what the PSEC team is doing around the SOE reform, so the critical skills list, for instance, that is out. So I think we're going to have to give the President and the government some level of credibility to say that we are definitely, from where we are sitting as business, seeing a pro-business ideological shift, which is actually very important, but you're also seeing an awareness, of the need for pragmatism, which is what the President displayed here this morning, to say we can't wish our problems away, neither can we trivialize them, so let's actually clearly articulate what needs to be done, so that we can actually make sure that all the stakeholders that we need to actually shift the country in a particular direction can come on board, knowing fully well, what we are confronted as a country.
So if we say that government have done their part, they've come to the party in some respects, 700 billion has been pledged, 300 or so billion has been actually committed. Now for the private sector, are they moving too slow to invest the further 300, 500 billion, or is it a matter of investments take time?
The condition precedent for any investment commitment that is being made is that as much as people won't articulate it, but I will invest if you make the environment conducive for me. And I think the most basic of those conditions precedent, implicit conditions precedent, when we make the commitments as business, is that at least the network industries have to work, which means there has to be energy security, which means the railways have to work, which means the ports have to work, which means the infrastructure has to work, which means the municipalities have to work. So the president has actually just articulated their commitments, and their plans, in terms of making sure that at least the network industries work. So I think the delay, in actually realizing the investment that has been committed is precisely because we have been struggling with just getting the basics right, in the country, and I think this fair appreciation, and articulation by the president in terms of where we are and what it is that we'd actually like to ensure that we actually get done, I think is definitely going to go a long way. I also like the fact how he's actually lamenting on bringing in the private sector to assist with some of the issues that they're actually facing as government. Because let's not be, confused. South Africa doesn't lack skills. We lack skills in government. But when you look at where we are as the private sector, we are world class in a whole lot of fronts. So government needs to be able to look at how do we tap into the skills, into the knowledge, into the expertise, into the know-how that actually resides in the private sector. And I think you're definitely seeing that shift. I don't know if you would have seen, was it about 3 weeks ago, when the NPA, Shamila Patoy, came out and said to South Africa, allow us to please bring the private sector to assist us with the prosecutions that we actually need to do as a country now that the Zondo, report is out. So you can see that that messaging from the president is clearly cascading down all the other government departments, and there is a certain degree of openness, from government in terms of allowing the private sector to come in and assist with some of the great challenges that they are facing.
Mavuso, thank you so much for your time. That's all we have time for today. There you have it. At least one business representative telling us fully that government have done enough so far, and it looks like the pragmatism that they're exercising is finally going to pay off. We'll have more for you from here at the investment conference later.
That's our business reporter, Kopano Gumbi, at the Sandton Convention Center. Thank you very much for that update.